Excellent.
So for those in attendance who have not been before, although I think everyone here tonight is a veteran of the festival by now, we're welcoming back Wendy Levy. We're delighted to do so. She's the executive director of the Alliance for Media, Arts, and Culture. And we're joined tonight as well, of course, by the director of Breaking Bread, Beth Elise Hawk. Beth's background in film includes producing the award-winning feature documentary Fan-Demanium and co-producing the feature documentary I'm Rick James. Before making the jump to the creative side, Beth was a business and legal affairs executive at Walt Disney Studios in its feature film department. And Breaking Bread is Beth's directorial debut. So a big welcome to both of you tonight. And now I'll turn things over to our moderator, Wendy.
Thank you so much, Neil. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's so great to have a Jewish film festival in Spokane. It's just one of those, as you know, I'm new to the community, and coming from Brooklyn and Oakland, I was not sure what Jewish life was going to be like here. And it was great to meet you early on in my tenure. And now to be part of the festival is just like a dream come true. So thank you. Here we are to have a little Q&A with the very talented Beth Elise Hawk and her incredible film, Breaking Bread. And I think what I'd like to do is get started with a couple of quotes that I pulled from a few articles, one about the film and one was about some of the ideas in the film, just as a little bit of context, because it's hard to know where to start asking a filmmaker who's made a film like this questions. You know, should I talk about food? Should I talk about Israel? Should I talk about the food festival? Should we talk about the chefs in particular? Should I talk about her journey to Israel and shooting? There's a lot we can cover. So I think for those of you who are here on the call, please utilize the chat. We want to make this it's late. We want to make this as interactive as possible. And so at any point in the conversation between Beth and I, if you have questions, please just jump in and we'll take as many as we can, because there's just so much here. And I think I want to start out with this idea about the role of food in this particular film, because it's not just food that looks good and reflects the culture, but the food is a way that people come together. And it really humanizes every character that's in this film when they're not just dining together, but they're cooking together. They're blending cultures. And we learn something of who they are through the food, but it's so clear and so beautiful when they learn something about one another. And it was so moving to me to see the sharing of recipes from the past, from the ancestors, because I know I grew up cooking my grandma Frances's recipes, and still today they conjure her. And so this film was like reliving a piece of my past, even though I've never been to Israel and I haven't made it to see where my family lived. And after seeing this film, I really want to get there. So Beth, thank you so much for making this film, for being here with us. But I need to kick us off with that quote from Toronto Now, where the writer kind of wraps up his review with Beth Elise Hawk's documentary occupies the space between cultural study and kitchen porn. And I just thought, yes, because this is not a documentary that like glosses over the food and doesn't style and design it. The food is so, it just lifts itself off the screen. So can you get us started by talking a little bit about your approach to the filmmaking here, of the storytelling? It's like you've got travelogue, you've got food stuff in there, but you have characters who you also wanted to reveal. How did you figure out how to shoot this so you could get what you needed to have at the end of the day?
You know, I think when you're, first of all, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here at the Spokane Jewish Film Festival, and it's an honor to be speaking with you, Wendy. You are such a big deal. People should look her up. She's a big deal. And also, Neil, thank you again for including me. So this, as you know, I think you were saying you've made films as well. When you make a documentary, or at least when I made this documentary, I didn't have an agenda. And what's so interesting to me about documentary filmmaking versus scripted filmmaking, when you have a script and you make a narrative film, you can hand the footage to 10 different editors, let's say, and 10 different filmmakers, 10 different editors, and you're gonna get a similar story. It might look a little bit different. It might have, the way the shots are ordered will look a little bit different, but the story, the plot is the same, and it will be similar. When you film a documentary like this, and you film 60 hours, and you come back, and if you gave those 60 hours to 10 different filmmakers, wow, what would you get? You would get 10 completely different films. You might get a film just on Mayan Habira. I had footage to make a whole film on Mayan Habira, right? You might get a film just on Nof. You might get different chefs. It's incredible what happens, but I had the honor to make this film. This was the film that came out for me, but it came out in the editing process. You sculpt it in the editing process, and it's the coolest process you can imagine. So, when you said, I don't think I had an agenda. I'm very influenced by food, anything to do with food, Chef's Table, Gyro or Jiro Dreams of Sushi, anything. You said the British baking show. It doesn't matter. I love it all. I love Big Night.
It's one of my favorites.
Right? All of those things. So I knew enough when I was starting out to find the best food cinematographer I could find in Israel, which I did with Ofer Ben Yehuda. Thank you, Ofer. I love him so much. And, it's true. We never stylized our food. Somebody asked me, because when you do a cookbook or when you do some of these other films, you take 1,000 shots of the film. No, it was documentary, honey. We had to get in and get out. And we were getting all the different food as much as we could during the festival. We were running in, we're running out. So he would just go in. I'd be like, Upper, go do your thing, and he'd go and he'd film what he could, and boom. And so what's so amazing about this story is the food helps bring in all the different audiences, right? The story is a human anthropological story, and the food is the sidekick, but it's also so important to me, and I love it so much. And there's been a way to have these exotic dishes that many chefs don't even know about, like Monty and Ta'ashimi, dishes that are so exotic. So all of these things come together, but that is the process. I can't say I had, I knew food was going to be the angle to bring in the audience. And that's what's happened. This is not just a Jewish film. This is not the Jews.
Not at all.
The Muslims love it. The Christians love it. The foodies love it. The people who love it, we won the Napa Valley Film Festival Audience Award for favorite culinary cinema film, which blew me away. And I believe me, I'm so grateful when I say that. I'm just shocked myself at how it's resonating. And it's resonating because times have been tough, and this is a message of hope. And this is an authentic message of hope. And it gives you the travel, which people are longing for. So when you tell me you've never been to Israel, and this makes you want to go to Israel, like, I want to cry. I'm so happy. Thank you so much for
thank you. I've wanted to go numerous times, and was actually invited by a couple of film festivals in Israel that then had to rescind the invitation because of violence happening. So I feel like it will, after COVID, I'm going to definitely prioritize it. But let me, I want to.
That's a very interesting topic, not to talk about politics or
Right.
anything, but it is an interesting thing in Israel that when things happen, because I originally had been talking to Nuf in 2015 about we had connected after she won Israel's MasterChef. I had heard her on the radio, and she had just won Israel's MasterChef. She was on a mission to bring Jews and Arabs together through food. And I said, oh my God, I gotta meet this woman. Authentic, incredible message coming out of the Middle East. When do you ever hear this? I've got to meet this person. So I jumped on Facebook and we became friends. So we were talking about doing other things actually in 2015, and then the stabbings happened. And one thing I've learned, and it's in the film, is, whenever there's any little, and it happens every 2-3 years, whenever there's a little something, the chefs talk about it, what happens, their own mini version of COVID. What happens? Everything shuts down. There's stabbings, nobody wants to go out. Suddenly the restaurants have problems. It's a I don't know what to say about it. It's just a reality that they deal with. So it's interesting you tell me that.
Yeah. Chefs are, I've found, as you know, I've mentioned that I had a 30-year parallel career in the restaurant business, and I'm friends with many chefs. And what I've noticed is that they are resilient beyond measure and can overcome hardship, and they do it together. And they're some of the most generous people that they're almost like human rights workers, because anytime a school needs a donation, an event needs to happen, there's chefs come together. The homeless community needs a kitchen, they'll build it, and it's just how it is. So
this is what I love, because people ask me, how did you find these characters, these incredible characters? How did I find these characters? It's exactly what you said. They're all chefs, and they all decided to participate in a festival that was about bringing people together. So they're just amazing characters. And of course they're Israeli, so they're exotic, but it just happened because by virtue of being chefs.
Yeah, let me ask you something, because they had agreed to do the festival, but then here you are, hold on one second.
Cheryl, shut that off.
Sorry about that. Had a slight emergency. But in documentary filmmaking, there is a degree of trust that has to go on between a filmmaker and the subjects, for the subjects to be able to trust you, that their story in your hands will be treated with respect and love. And they agreed to the festival, but I'm really curious, you still had to go to them and ask permission to share for them to share their story with you, and for you to share it with the world. How did you do that? What was your invitation to them and your promise to them about the film?
I'm just so grateful to all of the people who participated, and to this day, I don't even know what made them trust me, but I'm so glad that they did. I'm so grateful, and I feel like they're all happy. They've all been happy with the result, because I absolutely was respectful and, made sure to be authentic with them. But, the process was, I had already had this relationship with Nov. I filmed Nov first, and then she had a big list of all the different chefs participating, and she would sort of guide me who she thought might be interested, might be interesting, might be a cool couple. I mean, I thank her so much, and we can talk about that in a second, about Ali and Shlomi. I mean, it's the partnership from heaven. But so she sort of put me, in touch, or gave me numbers, and then I would just approach them and say, hi, Nov gave me your number. I know you're doing the festival. This is what I like to do. I'm doing a film. Would you be interested? And we'd have a pre-conversation. And not one of them didn't want to do it. I don't know. They all agreed, and I'm just really grateful. But what's crazy is, who would have ever thought that this parallel of two people who in some ways, really make the film, because they're mirror images, in my opinion, Shlomi and Ali. You have Shlomi, who's connected to his family restaurant for 3 generations. When he touches the meat, he feels his grandfather touch the meat. And you know, his whole being is about his grandfather and his grandfather's recipes of half a hand of this and 2 hands of that. I mean, who doesn't love that? And all he's about is bringing this food to the world. And then you put him with Ali, who's Muslim, who has the same story, just from a maternal side. He has and they're both handsome and they're both charming, and he has a grandmother. He wants to bring the grandmother and great grandmother food from Syria that's been going on for 200 years, and his dream is to bring it to Israeli society. And then you put them together and it's an immediate bond. And then like we were starting to talk about, suddenly food becomes that great uniter, and religious and political labels are no more, and all you're left with are just human beings in the kitchen connecting. And it's really something special.
That's fantastic. So listen, thank you for that. We have a very compelling set of questions here from Meryl Gersh. And she says, Beth, can you talk about why you think this type of festival works in Haifa? And what about Haifa's culture and atmosphere contributes to the success of the festival? And do you think it could be done in Tel Aviv, for instance?
Okay, so first of all, Nof is looking to, before COVID, she was looking to maybe bring it to Tel Aviv. But I think it could work in Tel Aviv as well. But look, Haifa is a special place that, if you couldn't tell from the film, I absolutely fell in love with. It's a love letter to Haifa. The place is magic. It's like a jewel. It's like nobody knows about it. And it just it's this beautiful place with mountains and ocean. It truly is, I wouldn't even want to say coexistence, because it's a loaded word. It's just people who are living together from all religions, and they're not paying attention to the religions. They're not paying attention to the labels. They just, and again, this is just my observation. Some people might say otherwise. This was my observation, but my observation is, you know, you had Christians, Muslims, Jews, Baha'i, everybody, and they're not interested. You know, everywhere else in Israel, they might be asking you what your religion is, or that. And here, nobody's interested. It's sort of like what Salah Kordi says at the end. He's talking about Jaffa, but when he says, listen, get the message out that we just want some peace and quiet. We just want to enjoy our lives. And that is truly what Haifa is. It might attract, more people who want more of a family life, people who aren't it's not the fast pace of Tel Aviv, and it's also trapped in the 1990s, which I loved, which means that they're not on their cell phones. There's no the decor is, forget about it. And the televisions are not in every restaurant where people are like on this looking at the screen. No, it's about living. It's about the moment and just not being, I suppose when you live in Israel, it's heavy sometimes, it's a heavy place to live. It's not like, it's been a little heavy here lately, but it's usually not heavy here. And that's a place that has a lot of stuff going on all the time. So I think when you live in Haifa, I think if you've chosen to live there, you don't want to think about the heaviness. And you just want to look at your life in the moment and in the area. And it's a beautiful thing. And it was sort of like that as well in Akko, which was just 20 minutes away. If you've never been, you said, and whoever else, if you haven't been, you must put Haifa on your list. You must go to Akko. Akko is, wow, that's one of the most beautiful places in the whole world that nobody knows about, and so exotic. It's like a Renaissance village, on the Mediterranean, and wow, and like Osama Dalal says, here's a church, here's a mosque, here's a synagogue, it's just all combined together. So very, very, very special places, and my heart is there, and I recommend it to everybody.
So Beth, just to clarify, when you say that is heavy there and it's not so heavy here, are you talking about the threat of violence? Are you talking what?
Yeah, I think it's all kinds of things. But yes, when you have, and it's on and off. And again, we're not going to talk about politics. It's just an outside observation in general. The chefs talk about it in the film in the section on the politics of politics. But you know, yes, I think we live in the United States. We don't have this impending situation that could rise, you know, we don't have a situation that could arise every day at any time like they do. And it's, you know, it's a complicated situation, but I'm just saying, you know, you can be there and suddenly there's things coming in from the north. There can be things come, it's from all sides. And remember, you know, there's Jews and Arabs living, Muslims that live in Israel too. They're all citizens, and they all have, they don't want the Muslims don't want the situation of violence either, you know, so it's just,
well, with the year that we've just been through, with the year that we've all just been through collectively, not only with COVID, but with the racial unrest and the storming of the Capitol. And I mean, there's been many people in this country have so much to contend with, which to me heightens the need for joy and heightens the need for connection across those boundaries. Right?
This was the first time in probably my lifetime, or at least since I've lived here and I'm from Canada, that I ever felt, yes, it was heavy this year too. And breaking bread, the message resonates for anybody. It should be in my opinion, with Democrats and Republicans. I mean, I'm working on I'll hopefully put together a companion book for this with the recipes. That's my hope. If anybody's interested, go to the website and put your email down. It says a cookbook. You can put your email there for if I can hopefully get it together. But, you know, my hope is with that book, you know, that it can be used to spark conversation later. It can be used to bring or the movie as well when it comes out in theaters. It's meant to be in theaters later in the year or next year. It's meant to bring people together. Yeah. It's meant to get over, you know, to see people as human beings and without labels. So it applies here as well. Yes.
Right. So while we're talking about multi-platform storytelling with a film and a book, can you give folks a little sneak preview about the potential TV show?
There is a potential television show. I am working on it. So I can't really talk about it that much at the moment, but I'm hoping to take this message. You know, this film was a gift to me. I mean, it has brought nothing but joy to me for the whole time I've gotten, from the beginning, from when I started scouting to filming to editing to now. It's been nothing but joy for me. So, and I'm so driven, I don't know why, but I'm like obsessed with the food and just the hope, just being able to spread hope and bringing people together. It works there. So, you know, yes, I hope that I can create I'm working on it with an agency in London, England, and they're helping me, and hopefully we're going to take it out. And I have a great concept to use the film as a catalyst for the show, but it wouldn't be the same chefs. It would be different people each episode. Yeah. But it's something I'm very excited about. So yeah, let's hope.
Nice. You heard it here first at the Spokane Film Festival.
Spokane Film Festival.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about how, and maybe if, the notion of Tikkun Olam, or healing and repairing the world, figured in your desire to create the film and the book and the television show? Because I know I work with filmmakers all over the world, and some are really driven by a need to have their work be part of a conversation that leads to a better world. And others are like, I just want to make a great, entertaining piece of work that brings people joy and is entertaining. And that and one is not better than the other, but considering you picked such an extraordinary time, and Jews and Muslims together, and where healing is so needed, I wonder how much Tikkun Olam inspires you as an artist.
I feel like it's a combination, you know. I definitely wanted to do something entertaining, and by virtue of it being entertaining, be able to reach out to more people, that can scratch their heads and say, maybe I shouldn't get so bogged down with whatever it is. Again, it could be here, Republican, Democrat, or maybe I shouldn't get so bogged down with all of these extra things and just need to focus more on the person. Because yes, I feel like in life lately, we have been bogged down by labels. We see so much separation between us, even here, and I don't like that. I am motivated, if this can help, just bring people together. I mean, I am not going to save the world. I'm I can't think that and I'm not going to solve world peace either. I'm not Gandhi or whatever. It's just, but if I can, it's kind of like what Nuff says, first of all, small steps, or Anthony Bourdain, I'm not going to solve world peace, but if I can make a small little difference, then then I feel that makes me feel good. So maybe it's a selfish thing, but
no, I think I don't think it's selfish. I mean, it doesn't feel selfish, but it does feel in many ways like a service, where there are people who believe that there may never be peace in the Middle East, but they also don't see that Jews and Muslims, Israelis and Palestinians work together for peace every single day. And there are those movements on the ground.
100%. I mean, this was such an important thing for me to be able, just a little piece in the film. It's one little piece, but it opens people's eyes when Nov talks about it and says, hey, and I have to tell you off camera, she started saying I asked her about Haifa, what's the percentage of people you think want to live together? And she started saying 90% of people want to live together. But in the film, she said, no, it's not just Haifa, it's in the country, 90%. And I said, are you sure? Like, I think we went off camera. I said, are you sure? Like, think about it for a second, if that number is right. And I think on the thing, she says, yes, it's correct. 90% want to live together, but it's the 10% who make it to the headlines. And then the 90% think that the 10% are the 90%. That's what happens. And that happens here too. And so we only see the headlines, right? So we think sometimes that the things we see in the headlines is that's what's going on in Israel proper, or within the borders. I'm not including the West Bank here, which is an absolutely different conversation. So, yes, I think I think there are 20% of citizens in Israel who are Arab, many of whom are Muslim. And yeah, I think most of them want to live together, but that's not who gets the voice, She even said in the film, and when I was interviewing her, even for the festival, she asked people to come and cover the festival, but when it's positive, who wants to cover it? Mm-hmm. Only when it's negative, they come, she says, Interesting. So that's what we end up seeing. And then that's all we know, but that's not the reality, in my opinion, or certainly that's not the reality of Haifa.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. You mentioned some things that happened behind the scenes, and it made me think of, I was wondering if during the shooting, while you were there, if anything unexpected happened behind the scenes, something that you didn't anticipate, that was a lovely moment that we'd never know just watching the film, but that you had a moment with one of your chefs, something that happened off camera that you were like, what is going on here? Anything unexpected that just came in and disrupted what you thought you might be getting at that particular time?
I'd have to think about it, because for the most part, as I said, it was just wonderful. I just didn't, I enjoyed it all. And what you saw is sort of what you got, nothing's coming to mind about that.
Yeah. Okay. Because sometimes with documentary, you are there, you don't script it. So sometimes unscripted moments happen where the two chefs are talking, and I'm like, they seem to be having this moment of bonding, Shlomi and I forget Ali. I was riveted at their, it was like we were there at the table with them. And
it's a really great question. I can't think of something
Yeah,
that.
no worries. It may come to you. There's a comment in the that just arrived from Miriam Berkman that says, "Thank you for the film and for the comment about 90%. After watching Crescendo and Incitement, two other films, I was struggling to see any hope or joy in the festival's films." And it's a heavy time. And so you brought joy.
Thank you for this. Again, this makes me want to cry. It makes me so happy to hear this because honestly, I have to tell you, this is an authentic story. This is not a made up story. This is not me going behind the scenes and making puppets and editing things out and no, this is what I saw. And that's why it is so important. It is so important that we see things of messages of hope in this time. And so thank you for the comment, but I must tell you, it's true. It happened, and there are people like that do want to work together, want to live together, many of the people. So yeah.
Do you think that Nof will do more festivals? Do you think this is something that could be ongoing?
She definitely, well, it was ongoing for a little while. I know she was working to move it to television. It's her passion, so I'm sure at some point she'll find another time or place for it, for sure. Yeah, it speaks to her heart.
And in a previous,
I hate talking for.
Of course, it's so hard to talk
for what I know. Yeah, from what I've heard.
Yeah, we spoke when I was speaking to Brad Rothschild about his film. We talked about a lot of things that I think, even though the two films are different, actually kind of intersect a bit. And we talked about how he brought his film back to the neighborhood where it was shot to show to the people. And I'm curious about the response in Israel and what kind of screenings you've had there and what your response has been.
Well, before COVID, the first place it did open was Haifa, at the Haifa International Film Festival. I was very honored that they included it, and we were sold out and people loved it, and Nof was there, many of the chefs were there, and afterwards they had a talk, a Q&A, and we all went into the garden, and nobody left. We had to get kicked out. It went on for so long, and Hila Alpert was there, the woman that talks about Haifa, and she says there's no God in the middle, that comment where she says no, Jesus, Muhammad, nobody walked through Haifa. She moderated it, and Nof was there. It's funny, there was a lot of conversation about the Levantine concept and the Arabic, whether it was an Arabic salad or an Israeli salad. I stayed out of it. I let them talk. It's not my conversation to have, but it was really wonderful. People seemed to really enjoy it, and again, everybody had to be kicked out for the next event because we were there too long. It also played in the Jerusalem Jewish Film Festival, which was magical. And again, Nof came again with her mother this time, which was a huge honor for me, huge. And a lot of the chefs came to that, and some came second time, and others, a couple hadn't seen it, so they came. But again, it's, for me, just the best.
I'm so glad you had that experience. Some filmmakers, their films play around the world, and they don't get to be there. And the fact that you get to see it with the intended audience is great.
It's playing in Australia right now.
Oh, wow.
Which is so incredible. It's playing at the, they have a Jewish International Film Festival that plays around the country there. Yep. And then it's going to play in theaters in Australia and New Zealand in June. And that's killing me. Because boy, if there wasn't COVID going on, I would have loved to go take my son and be there. But it's such an honor. So yeah.
That's wonderful. It's funny, the next question I was going to ask you, I just noticed there's a comment that actually reflects a little bit about what I was going to ask you. So let me read it. Meryl says that you really captured the light in the eyes of every chef when they spoke about their food traditions. And I totally agree with that they all lit up. And connected with that is the moment, the scene where Shlomi's talking about his father and his grandfather, and you feel the power and the weight of the influence of the family, and that Shlomi was exactly where he was meant to be and needed to be. And and it's that light in the eyes of like, I didn't expect to see a grown man kind of get weepy, but there was a vulnerability that I don't see often in Israeli men, that they, as a group. And all of a sudden you had this guy who's like got it all together with his restaurant, his great food and top chef-ishness. And there he is just connecting with his past. And it was beautiful. And I agree with Meryl that you captured that across the board.
Meryl, I want to hug you, Meryl. Where are you, Meryl? I'm thank you for these. You're making my night. But yes, I mean, look, I actually think Shlomi is the sabra. We talk about, Israelis are known as sabra, which is that fruit, which is prickly on the outside and so smushy on the inside. I mean, these are guys that are tough and they're in the army and then they come home and mommy's taking care of them. You know what I mean? Or grandma and family. Maybe this came across too. And again, it's just organic, but family is really important in Israel. It's just a cultural thing. It's that family restaurant. That's what it is. It's the grandfather, the dad sits out front, the son is in the kitchen. I loved, and Reuven the dad, he is in that seat from the morning until the evening. And if anybody ever sees that movie again, the funniest part about it, and even with all the extra footage I have, anytime there's a clip, you're going to see, if you look again, you see Ali and Shlomi at the table talking. If you look in the back, there's Reuven sitting in his seat. He's always in his seat. If it's light out in the movie, if it's dark in the movie, Reuven's in the seat. And it's just about the family with his sisters but Ali too, it's all about his mother and his grandmother. It's such respect.
That's right.
Respect for the elders that we don't see here as much. Such respect for the grandparents. Yep. That's so special.
Yeah. I also got the sense that at each restaurant that was kind of in the film, that where they were eating or their own places, that everyone was welcome.
Yes.
And that it was a place to connect no matter who you were.
Absolutely.
And that was
Ilan is like that at Talpiot, and Tomer, they're all, it's, for them, they're chefs, and that's how they communicate with food, and that's how they show their love, and you can feel it.
Yes. Speaking of love, you got a lot of love on the chat right now. And Diana says, thank you for making this wonderful film. We watched it as a family, and my 12 and 10-year-old loved it too.
Keep it coming.
Yes, and Shirley says, Miriam, this was so beautifully constructed. Like you, she mentions that the other films left her sad, but at last to be uplifted.
Oh my goodness.
That's what you were trying to do. Right? Yeah.
I really mean it. I really do. When you talk about as a filmmaker, I mean, this really is truly what, this is what it's all about. This is not, it's connecting with your audience, but then for you to say those things to me, it's just such a gift. Thank you. I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. And to hear the 10-year-old and the 12-year-old, that makes me so happy. That's another thing. This is resonating with all ages. I did not expect it. It's just, people are hungry for these messages because it's resonating it resonates in Israel. Honestly, I did not expect it to resonate in Israel. Israelis are jaded, they but it did. I noticed they're just, both sides do not see the other side talking. I mean, they do if you're in Haifa, they do, but in general, they don't hear the other people speaking. And I could watch them, the different sides when they were watching the film, how they were engrossed with what the other side had to say. Yeah. And that was shocking to me. I really wasn't expecting that.
The food was such a great equalizer and connector. And the humanity of everyone just sort of, you could let all of the conflict fall away and realize your commonality. And it was really, and it didn't feel faked or false or created for the movie. It felt like they were, that you really were able to observe something that was really going on. And I don't think the festival could have happened if that wasn't true. Like the heart and soul of the festival was really about that. Yeah.
It's heart and soul. And that's the other thing when people ask me what's happening with this film, why are people liking it? It's the heart and the soul.
Mm-hmm.
There is a heart, people love, and he's a god, so I can only bow down to Anthony Bourdain. But why do people like Anthony Bourdain's show? Because it's got soul and he connects, and it's not just about the food. The food is the side character. It's the Robin to the Batman, but it's the stories, it's the travel, it's the countries and the history. It's all of that, and the food gives it the heart. But it's also the characters. The characters give it the heart. Without the characters, there is no movie here. It's the characters. But that's what's connecting, the characters.
They invite you, you enable us to find a point of entry into their lives, and to feel close to them, like, which I did. Part of it, I think, being Jewish and, the kind of tribal nature of, lived experience, but it was, but you did that. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I really thank you.
Yeah. So I think I have to admit, I think it's getting close to my bedtime. It's late. Yeah. No, it's 9:45. And I think that I want to make sure that anyone else who's holding on to questions, please ask them now, because I don't want Neil to get mad at me and have us go on too long, because there's really, with every film, I feel like there's so much to kind of unpack a little bit. One thing I wanted to talk about was a quote that Nof had, I think kind of near the beginning of the film, about it's up to the artists to bring us together where the politicians have failed. And there's something about the role of artists in a culture and in a society. And in this case, you filmed culinary artists. And I'm wondering do you sense any difference between Israeli artists and their role in the culture with American artists and their role here in the culture, whether it's media, entertainment, or anything else? Because I think she was speaking to the role of artists in healing and making change.
Well, I think what she was saying was that she believed in the public. She didn't believe in the politicians. Mm-hmm. And her feeling about that was, if she could open the eyes of two people, and then two people would tell four people, and four people would tell 8 people. Next thing you know, you've spread a message, and that's how there's going to be a change, because she doesn't believe in the politicians. The politicians have let her down. Mm. So that's what I could speak to. In terms of the artists, I wouldn't be able to answer that.
Right. I think of these chefs as culinary artists, and by doing what they do, right, and bringing their heart and soul into their work, their paintings are those dishes that everyone gathers around, right? And I think we look to our food ways to heal and to bring us together. We look to art and stories to bring us together. But what your film did was combine the food and the storytelling for clearly an extraordinarily uplifting experience for everyone. So the film may have been a gift to you, but your film has been a gift to all of us here.
Thank you so much. Truly, truly, thank you from the bottom of my heart, to you and to Neil.
Yay, Neil.
If you guys like it, spread the word.
We will.
The social media and the website, it's all you have to remember is Breaking Bread Movie. You always see the movie, and it's on Instagram, it's Facebook, and if you want to maybe at some point, if the book is available, you can sign up on the website.
Yeah. Hey, I've got it before we go, Beth, I've got to read this to you. Miriam says, I love cooking shows, but I just want to say I never wanted to eat the food as much as I did in this film. Yes, isn't that? I
We
agree.
don't have to stop, Neil. Can we just keep going?
Everything. Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Haifa is now on Kathy's bucket list.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
Yes.
thank you.
You will not regret that. You will not regret that. If you go to Haifa, you go to, first of all, Talpiot Market. Now, Tomer, who was at Kwando Pasha, has Pizzeria Talpiot, and he's 2 doors down from Ilan. And Ilan's restaurant is it's very elevated, very gourmet, delicious, delicious food. And Tomer, who used to be at French Laundry, he's stashed at French Laundry. Yeah, he has his Pizzeria Talpiot, and you can go and say hi to both of them if you want to kick. And then you can go down to the main area and go to Mayan Habira and all of those places.
I want a food and art
Mom
tour for sure. Yeah, good. Well, thank you again, Beth.
Email me if you want recommendations.
All right, Neil, I pass it back to you.
Thank you so much to both
Thanks,
Wendy
Wendy.
and Beth for such a great session tonight, and to everyone who attended. It's been my great honor to be involved with this festival. So it's really a joy.
It has been.
Thank you again, Neil.
all.
Truly
Thank
an
you
honor.
so much.
Yes,
All right. Take
Good.
care, everyone.
everyone.